What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick B Dog, and this is my game Pandemonium at the Great Door. I created this game for Brackeys Game Jam 2024.1, and today I'm going to be doing a little retrospective on the game, talking about what went well, what didn't go so well, and how I ranked against the other submissions. So, without further ado, let's dive in there. So the way I see it, there are three pillars to what I'm doing here, because I'm making everything except for the music for these games. There is the game design, overall concept of what I'm doing here. There's the pixel art, or just art in general, and then there is the programming. So I'm going to go over those three things, give some highlights and some lowlights of each one of them. Then I'll dive into the results and reviews of how I did, and give some overall thoughts on how the game jam went, and that'll be it. So first, let's dive into the game design. So the theme for this game jam was what's behind the door, and I decided to make a platformer because I like platformers, and I made a platformer for my last game jam, but it was not very good. So I would like to make a good platformer this time, or at least do my best at it. I didn't really do much with the theme. The game is called Pandemonium at the Great Door. The objective of the game is to find two gems and then see what's behind the door. But that's it. Everybody else that made, or a lot of other people at least, there's doors all over the place in their games. So I definitely could have done a better job there. But that's all right. For my next game jam, I'll focus more on the theme. This one was mostly more about just learning more about Godot and practicing pixel art. So starting off with the things that went well with game design, the first one is there's a pretty good number of mechanics I added. There's a double jump, a dash, you can attack. There's a downwards thrust, it's kind of like Hollow Knight actually. I was wanting it to be more like Zelda 2, but whatever. There's also some moving platforms. There's platforms that like launch you up in the air, although they're kind of janky. You also unlock mechanics as the game progresses, so I think that gave it kind of a nice pacing. It starts off pretty basic. You can just jump and attack. Then you unlock the double jump and the dash. I think that gave it a more interesting pacing than if you just started with everything all at once. And I made the levels pretty challenging, but unlike my last game where it was pretty much universally agreed on in the reviews that it was way too hard, people seem to actually like the difficulty of this one. I think giving players three hits made it a lot easier, and I didn't really make the platforming that crazy, but yeah, I think I did a good job with the difficulty on this one. And finally, I think the music I picked fits nice. Kind of not giving up forever on making music, but there's just so much I need to learn about making games currently. Still so new to making art, new to making games in general. So I don't really want to throw also learning music theory and learning FL Studio and learning how to compose on top of that. There's tons of good composers out there, so I'll just let them do that work. And moving on to what didn't go so well, I talked about it a little bit, but yeah, I kind of ignored the theme. Pretty loose what's behind the door overall goal of the game, but that's it. Could have done a lot more with that. There's also no sound effects for anything. It'd be really nice to add sound effects in the future. I didn't have enough time, but I was happy that I at least put music in the game. The next bad thing was people really hated the control scheme. I went with Z for jump, X for attack, and C for dash. Uh, it felt okay while I was playtesting it, but maybe I just got used to it. Pretty much just a wall of comments from people telling me they hate the controls. If I pick controversial controls again, I guess I'll just add remapping so people can do whatever they want. Because that's good feedback to get. Like, you don't want people to hate the controls of your game, but it's such an easy thing to fix that it's like you really just need one person tell you that they hate the controls, not 20. And that pretty much covers all the game design. So, yeah, I decided to make another 2D platformer. I love platformers. I like difficult platformers, and I think I can do a lot better at making them than I did for my first game jam. So, thought it'd be a good experience to do it again. And next, we'll move on to the art. What went well there and what sucked. The first thing that went well with the art is I like the character and enemy sprites that I made. There wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason to why I made a game about a panda, but I did think the sprite I made was cute, so that's good. And got some compliments on it in the feedback section, so that's cool too. I think I made some good animations for the panda. I went with a 3 frame walk cycle or 4 frame, whatever. It's similar to what Mega Man does. It's where the second and the fourth frame are different, and then the first and the third are the same thing. So that's why it's kind of 3 frame or 4 frame, whatever. I'm used to doing 8 frame walk cycles, so I couldn't really get that to work with how few pixels I was working with here. So I think it was a good compromise to go with the 3 frame, and I think it looks good. I also really like the death animation I came up with the tombstone popping up, and yeah, I think that was a great addition to the game. I also really like the tile set I came up with. I followed my boy Adam C. Eunice's tutorial on how to make a grassy tile set, and I'll link that down in the description if anybody wants to follow along and make their own grassy tile set. But yeah, I think it came out awesome. And for the stuff that didn't go so well with the art, um, the first is I used a palette off of low spec, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying you're a bad pixel artist if you do that. Just long term, I'd like to create my own palettes rather than just picking them off low spec. I think in the for my next game jam, I'm going to try and make my own palette instead of picking one off low spec. Next, I think the animations are kind of lacking in this game. There's no jump animation. There's no contact when you hit the ground. There's no falling animation. There's also no ladder climbing animation, so he kind of just like hovers up and down on the ladder. It all looks kind of janky, so could have done a lot better with having a more complete set of animations for the game. And also, the background is really basic. I mean, it's just a flat blue color with some clouds I drew. Could have done a lot better there. Got some feedback on that. People suggesting doing a nice parallax background. So, definitely something to work on in the future. Another thing I messed up on is I didn't make the tile set 100% completely. It's missing tiles for like single width horizontal and single width verticals. Also, it's missing like just a tile for a single 16 by 16 platform. So it just kind of makes it look janky when if you do a single width thing, there's no nice stone bottom on it like there is for if you do a double wide one. And I wasn't sure if I should put this in programming or art, but I didn't set up auto tiling for this game, so I was manually picking each tile and pasting them all in there, which is a crazy slow process. And as the game goes on and I was getting closer to the deadline, the levels get just progressively janky looking because I didn't have time to set the proper top tile and the middle tiles and the bottom sides, everything. It's not hard to set up auto tiling. I know how to do it now. So, yeah, just something to always do in the future. Uh, I'd really recommend setting up auto tiling if you're going to do any kind of really anything with tile maps. It's not hard to set up, and it just makes it so much easier to just paste a giant rectangle on the screen and it all fills it in for you instead of you having to do it all manually. And that's it for the art. Next, we'll dive into the programming. Before I get started with the programming section, I just want to say I'm gonna show some code on the screen. It'll scroll through, and it's not the best code in the world. Um, and if you've never done a game jam, just know that at some point in the game jam, you'll realize you're under an extreme time pressure, and you're just gonna start banging out some real janky code. And that's honestly kind of fun. I've written software professionally for like 5 years, and it's it's kind of tedious sometimes. You got to unit test everything, got to go through code reviews. People are arguing over tabs and spaces, a bunch of nonsense. So it's kind of fun to just go in there and just hack away and do what you got to do to make something work. So try not to roast me too hard if you think this is the worst code you've ever seen. It is what it is. For the first thing that went well and kind of didn't go well too, so maybe it should be more in some imaginary mixed column, but I made a scene manager that can transition between levels, and I did utilize it at some point. You have to like on one level you go to the right, you get a power up, and then you go to the back into the other level, and then go to the left. So kind of cool. I think in the future I'd like to add more, optional challenges. Like Celeste has the strawberries, often like sections of the level you don't have to go to. So ultimately, I'd like to do more stuff like that in my games. And what's bad about the scene manager is it's really janky. I mean, it's incredibly brittle. It uses the position of doors to decide where to load, which is a horrible idea. I don't do that. If you move the doors at all, it's going to all stop working. The way I did it, it also requires a level script for a different level script for every level, which is also not great. If you're going to make a big game, that would be so not maintainable. But it did work for the game jam, and that's good enough for me. So it's not all bad. For some other things that went well, I did add unlockable powers as the game progresses, so that's kind of cool. Never done anything like that before. And I also made my first shader. I think I found a YouTube video on how to do it, or some code online somewhere. But I used a shader for the flashing white animation, or the flashing white effect when you get hit and when enemies get hit. I've played a lot of game jam games at this point, and I think that's something that's missed a lot. Is there's no there's no feedback on when people are taking damage or enemies are taking damage. It's really not hard to add like a flash effect shader like that. So definitely something I'd look into doing if you're going to make a game. And back into the stuff that didn't go so well, the rooms don't reset when you die. All I did is just move the player back to whatever the spawn position is. And this was really easy to do. So it's, depending on where you entered the room, it'll respawn you there. That's cool. But if you were to kill all the enemies and then die, all the enemies would be gone, and the level would be either really easy or impossible if you needed to pogo off of them. It didn't end up being a huge deal in this game, but definitely something to not do again in the future. The room should reset when you die, especially for really long term. If people start playing my game and want to speed run it, you want the levels to be consistent on when you enter, not just random where the platforms are going to be and everything. Another thing that's not good is the level transitions are really jarring. It just kind of, as soon as you hit the invisible doors, it just pops you into the next level, and that is really disorienting. A little flash forward to my third game jam that I've already done. I didn't add level transitions on that one either, and yeah, people really don't like just the screen flashing to an entirely new location. It's disorienting and kind of hard to follow what's going on with the game. Another thing that's not great, it's around the level transitions, is I didn't put camera limits for where the camera should stop scrolling. So all the where the doors are, it kind of just looks like a cliff because I didn't keep making the level after that. So as you're walking toward it, it kind of looks like you're going to walk off a cliff and then you just pop into the next level. It's pretty janky. Can definitely do a better job with that next time. There's also no start menu. There's no options at all. It just dumps you right in the game. Should really add some way to turn the music down if people don't like it. Really should have added remappable controls because people hated the control scheme. And I think just having a start menu is nice. Makes it feel like a more complete game. So gonna work on that for the next game jam. And finally, there's also a couple bugs in the game. Um, you can use the downwards attack off of anything, not just off of walls. So people were in the reviews were telling me that they couldn't get the launcher platforms to work because those are pretty janky. I guess that's also a bug. But yeah, you can just use the downward attack to like slowly just fly up walls if you want to. Um, when I was making this game, I know what a collision mask is, but I didn't use them at all. Everything is on just the first collision mask. So this would be incredibly easy to solve, but I did not solve it in the game jam. So that is definitely a bug that's present. Another bug is originally I wanted, when you go through the last level, it's supposed to dump you down back into the first level because now you got the two gems. You can go back to the door and see what's behind it. Uh, I I don't 100% understand what went wrong there, but it just shows you the end screen immediately when you leave the last level. And I realized this bug like an hour before the game was due. So really didn't have time to debug it. It just had to be how the game was going to be at that point. And one final bug in the game that I was aware of, but didn't feel like fixing in time. You don't actually need to collect the two gems. Especially one of them, I put in kind of a hard place to get to, and you'd have to explore the second level a little bit to even find it. But you don't have to find it as long as you get to the last level and just walk through the last door. It'll instantly show you the end screen. The two gems are kind of just cosmetic at this point. And yeah, that's all for the programming in this game. Uh, Definitely could have done a better job, but also it works well enough, and it was better than my last game. So as long as we're improving, that's all we like to hear. And now we'll move on to seeing how I ranked, what the reviews people, what reviews I got from people, and some my final thoughts on how the game jam went and what I'm going to focus on for the next one. So there were 787 entries, and overall I came in 321st place. My goal was to be in the top half, so crush that goal. That's awesome. Um, Going down by the individual criteria, the graphics, I got ranked number 209. That's awesome. I got a lot of feedback that people like the pixel art, so that's cool. The fun, I got ranked number 226. That's cool too. I'm glad to hear people thought the game was reasonably fun. Audio, I mean, I didn't make the music, but it's still cool to see that people like the music that I picked. Game design, 280, another better than my overall. I think that's cool. I think people like that there was unlockables and they like the level design I went with. For the theme, I got 436. Yeah, I kind of ignored the theme, so I knew I wasn't going to do great on that one. And for innovation, I got 481. That's also really bad, but at this point, I was really just trying to learn more about Godot. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel over here. It's a platformer with dash and double jump. I'm sure you've heard of a game with that before, but that's all right. I still learned a lot, and that's always the goal of these things. And then for the feedback I got, yeah, lots of people said they liked the pixel art. People were telling me they liked the number of mechanics I put, and they liked that it was difficult. Some people liked that it was difficult at least. Tons of people hated the control scheme, and I mean, that was most of it. Yeah, some overall positive feedback. People are always pretty nice in Game Jam comments because I think they want you to leave a nice review for them as well. So I totally get it. But yeah, it's cool to. I mean, it's cool to just have people play your games in general. If you're making games and not doing game jams, I would really recommend it just because there's a million games out there. I think it's hard to find people to play your games. So while you're new at it, especially, you're probably not making the best game in the world. So if you do a game jam, then they're not forced to play your game, but people do generally play your game, especially if you go and comment on their game and leave a review. A lot of times they'll come back and play your game. So yeah, I would definitely recommend game jams. They're a lot of fun, although they're kind of stressful sometimes. And my overall thoughts for the game jam were that it went really well. I was happy to be in the top 50%. That was my goal. I wanted to learn more about Godot, wanted to practice my pixel art. Both of those goals were achieved. So that's great. And some things that didn't go so great with the game jam where I procrastinated pretty bad. Not as bad as the last one, but still it was a 7 day game jam, and I'd say I probably worked on it really like three out of those 7 days. So could have got a lot more content, fixed bugs, and got a better rank overall. And that's it for this game jam. I had a great time. If I'd recommend you do game jams if you're interested in learning about games, and I'm going to keep doing game jams. So if you'd like to see more videos about game jams, or if you want to be my very first subscriber, you can push the subscribe button or the like button. Or if you hate me and think I should stop making games and stop making YouTube videos, hit the dislike button and leave a comment saying that you hate me. It's all good. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.